Welcome to the Draft Deeper podcast. This is your host, Nathan Grubel. Joining me, as always, is my producer, Kevin Black. And this week, we have another special guest joining us, Chris LeBron from the Off the Ball Network. Chris, I'm glad to have you in, my man. For anybody who doesn't listen to him yet or follow any of his stuff on social media or his show, Chris, I want you to explain to everyone a little bit about how you've kind of got it into the podcast and the radio business, what you hope to do, and where everybody can find you. I usually do that at like the end of the show to give a little plug, but you've been doing a lot of great stuff from what I've seen. I think your story is actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. This is I'm really excited to be on this show. Yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy, I've always obviously had a, passion for sports and basketball and all this, and I dabbled into podcasting, a few times in the last few years, but just never could have find my niche, just wasn't consistent enough. But then, I would say around last year, I just said, you know what, let's just do it. Just go for it. Let's just try it. And I went with it. Had no clue what I was doing when I first started. Zero clue what I was doing. With reps, like anything, with repetition and practice, and got better and better, and just kept going with it. And it's just crazy how far it's come from me just talking to my computer screen with no structure at all to now where I'm having, some pretty cool guests and be able to expand, the podcast and go into starting up a network and having my podcast on a big platform like Dash Radio on the Nothing But Net channel. It's pretty surreal. It's pretty crazy, and just, the amount of networking I've been able to do, it's been crazy, man. It's so much fun. I enjoy the heck out of this, and it just, it's just like I said, it's crazy. I still can't believe where I'm at right now with the podcast. It's taken a world of its own, and just each week trying to get better and better at this. And like I said, I've had so many great guests, especially with the draft. It's crazy, like the draft stuff. I've always been a fan of the draft, football draft, baseball. Like I just love drafts, fantasy football draft. I'm just a big draft guy, no matter what. And I remember when I around right before COVID actually happened, I remember having Matt Babcock as my first like big guest, and I'm like, and we talked about the draft and who's coming out, and potential fits for like the Knicks and all that. And I that's when I was like, you know what, I really like the process, and how he was explaining guys. I was like,
Hmm.
this could be something cool. So I started to see if there was like another, if there was other people who were into like doing the draft, because we're so accustomed to like seeing people on ESPN and Fox Sports and getting stuff from Bleacher Report and all these. I was like, there's got to be other people who do this stuff. And just, I didn't know there was a whole different world. There's a draft community that I didn't know existed, and I dabbled into that. I talked to some people, tried to get some guys on, got some guys on, some really cool guys that know their stuff, and just been fascinated with the process since. So I've done a lot of draft shows. I've done live mock draft shows, and just the amount of network I'm being able to do when being able to talk to scouts and all these things. It's been so much fun, man. It's just been a blast, and I'm looking forward to see how far, how much further I could take the podcast and the network, at. So it's pretty cool, man.
Well, that's what's so interesting is that for anyone who's been listening to this podcast since its inception, this previous summer with everything going on during COVID, I come from a scouting background. As I've said previously, I worked for a private firm.
Hmm.
I've done a few things here and there on the video side with some NBA teams.
Yeah.
Certainly done a few things with my video department, and working with some people back from my home college, Temple. So it's really interesting to see how many people who are much more accomplished in the world of scouting than I am,
Yeah.
like Matt Babcock, like Chad Ford, so many of these guys coming back to the public landscape and bringing a different spin to it from a media perspective. And I think that's what's so fun is
Yeah.
being able to have these kind of real conversations
Hmm.
with a lot of other more accomplished people and scouts. for the public to consume, not just holding this information behind closed doors. And that's what's really led me to want to create this platform, is
Yeah.
to teach a lot of the general public and the fans who are interested in the draft and more interested in scouting, kind of bring them into the conversations that go on behind the scenes. So I'm glad that I've been able to do that. I'm glad you've been able to do that with your platform. For anybody out there, after you listen to the show, follow Chris on Twitter at Off the Ball Pod. He's a great follow, shares a lot of good content, has a lot of good people on his stuff. So that's
Yeah.
why I wanted to have him on today for a very special show. This is the first Draft Deeper GM
Mm.
style mock draft that I'm going to be doing here. We're going to go through this for 2020. So how this is going to work is I've laid out an entire first round where I've kind of put myself in the mind of, if I was running each of these teams, choosing at that draft spot, what would I honestly do? Who would I honestly go with to add to my team? And naturally, I'll be bouncing these picks off of Chris. We'll kind of share some thoughts about the pick itself. Maybe we'll get into some talk about our evaluations on the prospects. And we're just kind of free. We're going to go off the cuff. We're going to freestyle with this a little bit. So I'm really excited. Chris, you ready to hop in?
Let's do it, man.
All right. So at number one, we've all heard the talk, the trade speculation with what the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to do. I did not expect, when that draft lottery happened, for them to land the first pick. I think on our Twitch stream that we did live for the draft lottery, I think I was as shocked as probably a lot of people were,
Yeah.
seeing that they were the ones who got number one. If anything, I thought it was going to be somebody like Golden State, just the God smiling upon the NBA's golden child again, giving them the number one pick. But they got number two. Minnesota has number one. If I were in their shoes, right? And again, we're not going to project trades in this mock draft. I can't really project anything that we don't have concrete information on. We have to do this mock, all 30 picks, as if there's no trades. Everybody's just picking straight up. If I look at who they have two franchise cornerstones potentially in place, still on the young side, in Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, both ball dominant players,
Yeah.
both can work with the ball in their hands, without the ball in their hands. I think to help them establish themselves better offensively, as well as to get everybody else on that team involved, I think they need another ball handler, another primary offensive initiator in that lineup. And that's why I have them going with LaMelo Ball. Now, there are concerns about that. There are
Yeah.
concerns about if D'Angelo Russell and LaMelo Ball are a good defensive combination together. I'm on the side of things that you heard Mike Schmitz talk about on ESPN in recent weeks here, that he feels that LaMelo is not going to be a negative defensively, despite you might have seen at times in his play with the Illawarra Hawks that he was sometimes disengaged
Yeah. Big
defensively.
time.
And I think that happens with a lot of younger players, especially from a lot of the systems that he came from. Growing up playing with his brothers at Chino Hills, they were offense first. LeVar always had them kind of focused offense first. So there are going to be a lot of growing pains with him defensively, but he's 6'7". He's a big guy. At the end of the day, if he's put in the right position to succeed defensively with the right personnel around him, with the correct schemes, matching him up and asking him to guard the correct people, he's 6'7", right? Like, you see
Yeah.
guys, like, just an example off the top of my head, like Tobias Harris. He's probably no better than an average defender, yet he's had some good moments just because
Because of length. Yeah.
yeah, he's because of his size, because of his length, he's been able to find the right matchups defensively. Naturally, if he gets asked to guard somebody like in the playoffs, I was screaming at my television when he kept going. He was the one to guard TJ Warren in that first bubble game, because that just was not somebody that he should have been matched up with as like a main shot creator. But if you stick him on the right guys, have him in the right situation, he can at least not tank your defense, right?
Yeah.
And with everything LaMelo brings to the table offensively, he's the best passer in the draft, hands down. He can make every pass you would want him to. He's shown flashes of being able to score on ball. His pull-up game, he's a three-point gunner. He loves
Hmm.
to stand behind that arc and gun
Yeah.
those threes. So, what do you think about LaMelo, Chris? How would you evaluate him as a prospect? And am I really off the mark here having him go number one?
Yeah. So LaMelo Ball, obviously, he's been in the spotlight for a long time, and it's he's one of the most polarizing players in this class, and it's a lot of people, have been going back and forth with him. They get scared of him because we've you know LeVar and all, people worry about the defense and the lackadaisical effort. And I think I think the one thing that when I think about LaMelo and I evaluate is that drive. Is he going to have the drive to want to be great? Because a lot of guys who coming into the league, that's their motivation is to be great, and get to that next contract where they can make a lot of money. And he's already have all the fame, the money, and all that. Is that going to be a motivation for him? Is that going
Mhm.
to drive him to want to be great? That's the thing. Does he want to be great? The talent is there, right? We see the passing. I mean, well, what do most people tell you? They fall in love with the passing, right? He's going to come into the league and be a tremendous passer, right? And that's going to be great for Towns and Russell and all that. But it's those things. Is he going to come in and want to be great? And that's the one thing. Going into Minnesota, and then I know LeVar. That's another thing is LeVar. Do teams want to deal with LeVar because he's going to talk? It's inevitable. He's going to speak up. He's been quiet of late. He was quiet. When Lonzo got traded to New Orleans. Is he going to speak up? Is he going to say something if LaMelo's not playing right away, or he's not playing the minutes? He's not playing fourth quarter minutes. Is that going to be something that's going to be an issue, and our team's going to want to deal with that? I know that may not be a big issue and for some people, but I still think that could be something. So I don't think it's crazy that if LaMelo does go number one, because he may have one of the highest upsides in this draft, and in this draft particular, you may I definitely see a lot of teams taking a chance on upside and just going with that and seeing what works. So definitely not shocking to see if LaMelo goes number one, but there are things you got to work with. His shot making ability and just efficiency. But the passing, like I said, his length on defense. He just pickpockets everything. He holds speed. He steals everything. I wouldn't be surprised if a few years he's a league leader in steals and all that. But if you get him and you mold him, you could be getting yourself an all-star type player. So I could definitely see why Minnesota would take a chance and take him number one.
Yeah, like Lonzo, right? Like Lonzo
Yeah,
is a great steal artist.
yeah,
And I think those two compare very favorably. That is my real comp for LaMelo is his brother Lonzo, because I feel like
yeah,
they
yeah,
both play a similar style. I think they want to do the same things. Now LaMelo has better touch right around the basket. He has
yeah,
a
yeah,
much better layup package and diversity in the amount of shots that he can make around the basket. Lonzo
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is a very standstill initiator who certainly can act as a catch and shoot threat when his shot's on, in the same
yeah,
way that LaMelo can. But LaMelo just has so much more upside
yeah,
just being a primary scorer. So
yeah.
that's where he overshoots that comparison. And I'm rooting for all these kids in the draft.
Exactly, right?
I am rooting for LaMelo because
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
just that showtime factor that he can bring to the game, and having him and D'Angelo as
yeah.
potential wizard passers on the perimeter for Minnesota certainly opens things up. It allows Towns to be a better catch and shoot option from the corner or out behind three that he started to do a lot more of last year
Oh
in,
yeah,
in,
he was a
in
monster at
Minnesota.
that. Yeah, yeah, definitely. His shooting took off last year for sure.
Yeah, and so if he's going to keep looking for those kinds of shots, then what better way to try to get him the ball than have not one but two lead ball handlers that can
Yeah.
certainly find him cutting and then passing to the outside. So I like that pick for Minnesota. I think if I had to put money on it, if I had to put my actual hard-earned money on it, I think that's what I would bet, that LaMelo is going to be drafted number one of the Wolves. I don't think they're ultimately going to move that pick. Now, the next pick, this is a great segue to some pick that actually could be traded.
Hmm.
I have the Warriors. If I was the GM, if I was acting as head of basketball operations like Bob Myers, I would take James Wiseman here. I personally, as a scout, I have him second on my big board. I think the offensive upside that wasn't able to be shown at Memphis, to me is just way too intriguing on top of everything he can do defensively, his athleticism, his open court speed, his length, all of those physical tools and the potential defensive package wrapped up with things that you've seen here and there offensively, even going back to high school regarding his ability to handle the ball a little bit, to drive to the basket, make plays off the dribble. These are all things that over time, again, he's probably not going to be doing a lot of those things or showing a lot of those skills in bunches his rookie season. But over time, hopefully by the end of his rookie scale contract, he will be doing those things a lot more frequently. And at that
Yeah.
point, we're talking about crazy, crazy upside at his size, given his physical tools. So, do you think, Chris, that Golden State's going to keep the pick? And if they do, who would you take at number two, knowing that LaMelo is off the board, at least in this mock?
I mean, I think that they're gonna make a deal and trade this pick. Because they're in win now mode. Obviously they dealt with injuries. They got some. Clay Thompson was banged up. Dealing. Steph Curry and all that. So they got some injuries, but they're still in win now mode. They're still trying to win a championship. So but if they do stay put, to me, James Wiseman, I mean, the upside alone is probably worth the second pick.
Mhm.
He's a freak athlete. Like he is super freaky. Like 7'1", crazy wingspan. I mean, there's not a lot of 7'1" guys who can move the way James Wiseman. Like you're not supposed to move that well, being 7'1", 240 pounds. It's crazy, like what he can do and the potential. Like we didn't see much because he only played 3 games and the whole incident with Memphis, but he was highly touted out of high school, and to me, I mean, just looking at him and just projecting him, a couple years down the line. I mean, we could be seeing a guy who's 25-10, right? Like he's just that good. So it's just I would if they do keep the pick, I think they should definitely change James Wiseman. They definitely need a big two. So I mean, James Wiseman at two. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the pick if Golden State keeps the pick.
Yeah, he makes sense. He has upside in his own right. He can help them immediately. As you
Yeah,
mentioned, they have that hole at the center spot. I think right now, if you had to peg their starting center, it's probably Kevon Looney.
yeah.
Um,
They can
so
upgrade. Yeah, they can definitely upgrade at that position. So.
they could stand to upgrade. So I like that pick. Moving into number three, the Charlotte Hornets. I would choose Anthony Edwards here. I know there's a lot of buzz about Onyeka Okongwu potentially going here because Charlotte's been looking long and hard at drafting a big man of the future. But just given where this league is, where the league is probably going to continue to go, being
Mhm.
so perimeter and guard oriented, I think passing on Edwards here would potentially be a mistake. I know there's questions. I have had questions about his IQ, his understanding, his feel for the game is raw, but anyone out there who has the same questions, I have to bring myself back in a little bit and just remind myself and everyone else who has that critical evaluation of him that he really only started playing basketball at a high enough level at the age of 16. He was
Yeah,
a football player growing up and he transitioned to basketball where clearly at 6'5", almost 225 pounds, he's built like a tank. He's
yeah,
built to play this game at a high level athletically, skill wise. What can he honestly do on the court from a scoring perspective, right? He's a three-level scorer. When
exactly.
he's on and he's dropping buckets, like putting up crazy numbers against a good team like Michigan State. He's going to drop the same amount of points, at least in some NBA games. The question is, how consistent can he be? So, Chris, do you like that pick at number three for Charlotte specifically? Do you think he's a good match with Devontae Graham and Miles Bridges and PJ Washington and some of the other young talent they have on that team?
Yes, yes. They need star power too, right? They need star power, and Anthony Edwards is that. Like I think for most people, like obviously this draft could be all over the place as far as people have ranked, but I think for the most part, everyone has Anthony Edwards pretty much, top 3 to 5, right? I feel like, that's the consensus with him. Everyone has him in that spot. So with Anthony, he's just so skilled, like you said. 3 level scorer, can do everything. I like his moxie, his I watched the stuff he did with Mike Schmitz in
Hmm.
ESPN, and just the way he was just presenting himself, he was engaged, and I just like that. I was like, all right, he's got this it factor to him, right? And it's just, I don't know, he just brings that energy, I think, and that I like about him. And like I said, Charlotte needs this, right? They need to, to get some star players and continue to build. And I mean, he could come in right there and be an instant impact player for them. So I mean, Charlotte would probably be doing backflips if Anthony Edwards is here at 3. I mean, they get themselves a potential star player, and someone that could be the face of the franchise. So if he's here at 3, Charlotte definitely should be running to the Zoom podium and go take Anthony Edwards, super fast, because to me, I mean, that's a home run if he's there at 3.
Yeah, and I think he's a good fit also from the fact that you talked about the personality he was able to show
Yeah.
with Schmitz, which by the way, anyone in my audience here who hasn't gotten a chance to watch a lot of those video breakdowns
Oh,
that Mike Schmitz did,
tremendous, tremendous.
it's not even that Schmitz is picking out clips necessarily that will like blow everyone away from like an evaluation standpoint, or he's
Mhm.
making a lot of points that haven't been made before. But
Yeah.
just being able to, he's a great interviewer and he's a great
Oh
conversationalist
yeah,
as
yeah,
a
yeah.
video guy. So having that and being able to get these prospects on camera, listen to them, watch them talk about what they're seeing through some of these clips, that's just
Mhm.
great for anyone to
Yeah.
see, especially
Makes them
someone
feel
who's evaluating.
comfortable too. He makes them feel comfortable because he's not just gonna talk to them about the good things they do. He's gonna be like, hey, you didn't do this. What was your thought process going through? So he gets them engaged, makes them comfortable, and talks about the good and the bad. So that's what I love about the Schmitz videos. I could watch those videos all. I think
Yeah.
I watched the Bane one today. I watched Tyler Bane. I watched like 4 or 5 of them today because I just love the interaction he has with those guys.
Yeah, it's great content. So definitely anybody who hasn't seen those, go check him out. But yeah, Edwards, he's a mild mannered kid. He's a good kid. He certainly can be engaged and fun. You saw that on that video. So I think he's a good kid. I think he just needs some more basketball direction, and he needs the right people around him, right?
Exactly.
And when
Agreed.
when you talk about Devonte Graham, longtime Kansas starter, came from a great program. Bill Self is one of the best at instilling confidence in his guys, getting them to play the right way and showing them how to play the game at a high level. Miles Bridges out of Michigan State, Tom Izzo, obviously one of the best coaches in the college basketball business. PJ Washington came from Kentucky, a John Calipari guy. So we're talking about 3 starters that would be around him,
Mhm.
all great character guys in their own rights, coming from great college programs that really taught them how to play the game the right way. James Borrego is a great head coach. I'm glad that he's had the opportunity that he's had in Charlotte. Mitch Kupchak obviously running that front office.
Mhm.
Charlotte's done a lot of good things in recent years, in the last like 2 to 3 years, that not a lot of people talk about all the time. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. I think they just need star power. They need that home run hit, and Anthony Edwards has as much talent as anybody else in the draft. So I like that pick.
Oh yeah.
So moving on to the Chicago Bulls at number 4, they need a point guard, flat out. They
Mhm.
need a primary initiator who's about getting others involved, not necessarily just scoring on the ball. I think I like Kobe White. I think he showed a lot of good stuff for Chicago last year. I don't really see him as being like a lead guard on the ball, making plays for everyone all the time. I
Yeah.
think he's much better off the ball, being allowed to kind of score, get a bucket, do his thing, catch and shoot. He proved to be a better than I expected, at least 3-point marksman out of the gate in his rookie season. So that's why I have the Bulls taking Killian Hayes. Now, there are some people who would say, well, why not Tyrese Halliburton here, right? Halliburton's a very smart guard who doesn't always need the ball in his hands, can make plays for others, is definitely an unselfish player who's going to bring a winning style and a winning attitude to a team. I'm not knocking Halliburton in any way for any of those characteristics. I like him. We're absolutely going to talk about him here in a little bit. But I just think with Killian Hayes, I think from what I've seen, he brings a lot of that same style of playmaking on the ball, and he himself presents a level of upside scoring the ball and being more of a complete guard that I don't think Halliburton ultimately has in him. Now we may be proven wrong
Mhm.
about that in the coming years. I would love to see Tyrese Halliburton obviously succeed at an even higher level than I have him projected. But Hayes to me compares favorably to Goran Dragic,
Yes, yes.
a guard that we've seen in his prime, had some incredible years in Phoenix, and certainly he showed his worth or has shown his worth playing in Miami the last few years, even certainly in the bubble, making a name for himself, helping the Heat achieve success that. While Jimmy Butler can come out and say that, yeah, he believed they could do it all along, I don't think that team ultimately thought, oh my God, we're definitely going to the finals this year, right?
Yeah.
So he definitely helped them overachieve, being a veteran presence, being able to score from all three levels, get other guys involved, being unselfish, and holding his own defensively, being that competitor that he is. So that's why I have Killian Hayes at number 4. Chris, in your mind, I guess I'll ask this question: who do you like better as a prospect, Killian Hayes or Tyrese Halliburton?
Oh, Killian Hayes is my number one player on my board. So
Okay, you're in the Kevin O'Connor bandwagon. Okay.
yeah, yeah, I'm all in on Killian Hayes. To me, he's my top player. He's just if the Bulls get him here, I think him and Kobe White together could be a really good combo. Because Kobe White could play. It doesn't I know people think he's a point guard, no, but he could play off the ball too. So I think that's a perfect combination. Having them two together. I think that'd be that would be dangerous for teams. Playing against them. But Killian is my best player. I love everything about him. I love the playmaking. I love his ability to create and I think he just I love the way he sets up. He's a great playmaker. He does how he gets to the basket and all this. He just to me he's one of the few players in this draft I could see being a perennial all-star. He just his ability to go attack the basket, finish. I know people worry about his ability. Yeah, he loves going left, right? I know people talk about that a lot, but I think those things can be worked on in the league. I know his 3-point shooting is something people worry about too. But when you're playing overseas, the game's different and all that. I think once he gets to the pro, because I mean he's a great free throw shooter too. So that's a kind of an indicator that he can work on that too. So, he shot 88%, free throw line. So I think that's a good indicator that he can get better from the 3-point line. So I know I just love the playmaking. I just love everything about his game. I think he can be an instant impact player and someone that could be an all-star down the line. If you pair him with Kobe White, man, that's a lethal backcourt for Chicago. So if Chicago, if Killian's here at 4 with Chicago, man, that's another run to the Zoom podium again and take him because that'd be a great fit for Chicago.
Yeah, and I think my projection for Killian Hayes, the concerns that I have and the concerns that have been shared from a number of evaluators who don't have him as high as like you or like Kevin O'Connor, for example, at the Ringer, is that Hayes might not be as explosive on the ball, driving to the basket and being able to create in that way to set up the rest of his offensive game. I think if you're able to limit him as a purely perimeter oriented scorer, I think that's where he gets in trouble as far as his jump shot and the type
Yeah,
of jump shots that he ultimately wants to take off the dribble. But if that part of his game isn't an issue, he's able to get to the basket and kind of operate in space and create for others. That opens up his perimeter game. And when he takes good looks in rhythm, I don't see his 3-point shot being an issue whatsoever. There's nothing about his form that really alarms me. I think he is going to be able to be like a 37, 38% 3-point shooter in time in the
great.
league. And if that's the case, and he's able to pick his spots elsewhere on the court inside the arc, I
Hmm.
mean, we're literally talking about a complete guard in the mold of like a Dragic, is who I compared him to. So I he's been a tough guy for me to rank. I have him. I have him 7th on my board. I would
Hmm.
love to be able to move him up. There's other guys I like more than him ahead of him, but he's absolutely like every guy that I kind of have in my top 10. I really like a lot, so I don't want that
Great.
number
Same
where they
here
are
too.
on my
Yeah.
board. Yeah, to really be like the ultimate be all end all indicator of like, hey, I don't like him as much as a guy before him. No, I probably do. It's just if I really have to pick and choose, gun pointed to my head, where am I going to draft these guys if
Yeah.
are putting them on my board working for a
Mm.
team? That's where I have them, right? So I like Killian Hayes a lot. I think that would be a solid pick for Chicago, and I agree with you. They should be doing backflips if they're able to select him, not have to give up any assets to go get him whatsoever.
For sure, for sure.
So moving to Cleveland at number 5, this is a really interesting one because the
Yeah.
more people you talk to, I don't know where you're at on their backcourt pairing of Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. I guess that's probably going to be the question I'm going to ask you because I have Denny Avdia going here at number 5. Now, I think Drummond's going to be with the team. Kevin Love, there's been talk that he's not really going to have a home. He's not going to have a market for him, so he's probably going to stay in Cleveland as well. And then you have the young backcourt there. So having another guy to slide into that 3-4 role, I think would be great, especially a guy like Avdia, who I have questions about his ability to be like a primary initiator from like, you're going to handle the basketball, you're going to dribble like 5, 6 times, go one direction, go the other direction, make a play for somebody, right? I have
Yeah.
questions if he's that level of initiator, but just in terms of making quick, sound basketball decisions, I think that's where he shines the most. And I think having two other guys in the backcourt who can handle the ball and make plays for others, get
Mm.
him the ball. You're able to run certain sets for him, allow him to do those small things in terms of playmaking to maybe get them open, run some quick actions with like a Kevin Love or like an Andre Jarman. And then as you were seeing during the whole NBA shutdown, but Denny was actually able to play games
Yeah.
overseas, and he really came on flashing his 3-point shooting ability off the catch. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for him, even though some people have pointed to the free throw numbers being a little low and the efficiency numbers being a little low for what he did for Maccabi Tel Aviv. I don't think that's going to be an issue for him long term in the NBA. I think he's going to be a good enough shooter. He's that 6'10" combo forward. I would project him out if I had to give him like a comp in the mold of like a Danilo Gallinari. I think that's who he compares to very favorably. And
Mhm.
if he can be as good as Danilo, keep in mind, I know Gallinari's been hurt quite a bit in his career, but when he's been healthy and when he's been on,
He's a great player.
he's a great player. Not even just a good player; he's a
Great.
great player.
He almost was
So
an
if
all-star this year. Like, he was almost an all-star this year.
Yeah, so if that's who Denny ends up being, like that's why I have Avdia number 3 on my board. That's why I have him there because if that's who he compares to favorably and that's kind of like a ceiling he can hit, I mean, who wouldn't want that kind of a player on their team in today's game? So I guess Chris, do you see him as a fit with those two guards? Do you think those two guards are definitely going to be there long term, or are you maybe operating in the camp of somebody like Chad Ford and John Hollinger just talked about on Chad's pod that maybe you still take a guard here, or if you think that somebody like that might be a better fit than one of those two that's there right now?
Oh man, Cleveland, man. They I don't know what they're doing sometimes in Cleveland. It seems like it's just a mess. I didn't understand why he took Garland last year too. That was kind of a head scratcher. I didn't understand that. But, in this case with Denny, I mean, Denny, like you said, he could project to be a Danilo Gallinari, but maybe a better playmaker. And Danilo is a solid playmaker and stuff. And not the slasher that Denny is right now. If he can get to the shooting aspect like Gallinari, I mean, we're talking about an all-star level player. So I mean, he has all the talent. Can his playmaking ability is tremendous, and that's definitely something Cleveland could use along with Garland, Sexton, and they got Porter, there too. So they got they, they got some guys there, and adding Denny would definitely help. It's going to see what the fit with Kevin Love and Drummond there right now, and I don't, those two guys have also been in trade rumors. So interesting to see where they'll do there. But the Denny pick, yeah, I think it would be a good addition. His playmaking and all that, will definitely help this team. And I know the free throw shooting and the 3-point shooting people are really worried about. But like you said, when he came back, he definitely improved his 3-point shooting. And I think the free throw can definitely get better. So Denny here, I mean, he could do a lot of things really good. So I mean, work on the 3-point shooting and free throw shooting, I think that can definitely improve. So I wouldn't, this would be a good pick for Cleveland, but for sure.
Yeah, and Denny was so accomplished overseas in his own right. He obviously wasn't Luka Doncic level
Yeah,
accomplished, but I mean, he has a list of accomplishments in his own right. And if
yeah,
you're bringing in another smart, competitive basketball player to Kevin Love, who is obviously an established All Star, Andre Drummond, I think at this point has become underrated. I know that he might not be a max contract, someone that you want to pay that amount to in today's
yeah, yeah,
NBA. But let's not undersell what he is. He's the best rebounder in the league. He's arguably one of the better, more athletic rebounders of all time. We could that's a different topic
yeah.
potentially for a different day. But
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean, if
yeah.
you look at some of his gross numbers throughout his relatively young career here, I mean, he's been magnificent on the boards. So you add Denny with those two front court guys, those two backcourt guys, Sexton and Garland, who can also make plays for others. Garland was obviously coming off of an injury coming into his rookie season. I think he's going to be better this year than he was last year. So you're talking about a 4 round 1 offense potentially, 4 guys who can move the ball. Let's not undersell Kevin Love's ability to pass and
Oh
make
yeah,
plays with his
tremendous passer.
elbows and be live in some of those actions. Am I crazy to think that that's a team in the Eastern Conference that could potentially challenge for like a bottom seed? Am I that crazy? Like just knowing what I know about basketball and watching enough of the NBA, I
Yeah.
don't think that bad of a team.
In the East, yeah, I mean, anything could happen in the bottom of the East, that for sure. You could definitely be an 8 seed. It just, I don't know, it's still weird to see how they can figure out everything. I don't like, and they said, those, is Kevin Love a part of their future? Is Drummond a part of their future? I like Porter too. Like, I think that's another good young player they have. So just seeing how they fit everything together and all that. But I mean, they do have the potential to possibly be, in a up and coming team and fight for possibly an 8 seed. But it's just going to be interesting to see how they work everything together, especially if they add Denny to this team.
Yeah, I wish Kevin Porter Jr. nothing but the best. I know he was
Yes,
sharing
yeah,
some
yeah,
things on social media that could lead some people to be concerned about him. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope that he's able to bring himself in healthy in all aspects for
exactly,
his
exactly,
next
yeah,
season.
yeah.
Because yeah, you're right to mention him. He is a talent.
Oh,
Uh,
he's so good. If obviously we hope he gets everything together, and if he gets everything together and he's on the right track mentally, he's going to be good one. He's going to be good. And like I said, to add to this team already with the guys they have, and then you add Denny to that, I think they could have some players
you
on this
still have
team.
Chetty Osman.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
still
Esmond.
have guys. So yeah,
Exactly,
I
exactly.
think that could be a really competitive team.
Oh yeah.
At number 6, moving to Atlanta, there's obviously been a lot of talk that this pick could potentially be on the move too.
Hmm.
Trae Young wants to make the playoffs. That front office wants to make the playoffs, but I think it might be a mistake not taking Isaac Okoro here, um,
Agreed.
and
Agreed.
actually keeping that pick. And here's the really interesting thing about Okoro. I think he's exactly what that team needs. Um,
Exactly.
Long term, I know there's questions about is John Collins like a potential max extension type player? Is he definitely your 4, potentially 5 man of the future? He hasn't proven he can play the center spot yet. That's why
Hmm.
they went out and got Clint Capella to kind of anchor that defense. So if you could move off of Collins, and maybe they're not looking to do that. I'm not trying to be a reporter or aggregate content here, but just if I'm doing this mock draft, if I'm drafting from a GM's perspective, if I could move Collins, get enough assets back or another good player in return for Collins, draft a Coro to potentially be like that 4-3 of the future, that defensive monster that he is, along with Capella. Now we're talking about 2 great defensive weapons around Trae Young and some of those other younger guards that they have who shouldn't be sold on at any point, like Cam Reddish, like Kevin Herter. You have those offensive weapons around Trae. Okoro in his own right has offensive upside that can be tapped into, and then obviously you have Capella, man in the middle for that team. All of a sudden, that becomes a really versatile
Yeah,
lineup.
that's
With
a
I know that
scary
Trey's limited defensively, and he's not the biggest player himself, but you have Kevin Herter, Cam Reddish, and then Okoro, all guys 6'6" or bigger, to help defensively, and then obviously Capella with the shot blocking monster that he is, and operating out of pick and roll, spreading the floor with those other three guys. So, do you like that pick a lot, Chris? It sounds like you do.
Oh, this is like a perfect fit. Like I remember post talking about like which players and teams are perfect fits, and Isaac Okoro and Atlanta are like a match made in heaven. Like, obviously we're hearing the rumors, the trade rumors of possibly getting Drew Holiday, and I talked to a couple guys who are Hawks fans. I'm like, I wouldn't do it. I would just go if Isaac Okoro is there, boom, that's your fit. He's the perfect fit. That's the guy you need. Like a guy who's a lockdown defender, right? He's the best defender in this draft. Like on ball, off the ball. He's just gonna get into you. He's a physical specimen. Like he's everything the Hawks could use right now. I think it's a match made in heaven. Coro in Atlanta. He's, I think people are so focused on the shooting. And listen, early in the process, that was my thing too. Like, oh man, his shooting, man, I just don't like it. But then someone told me, what? Just focus on everything else, and then get to the shooting. And then I looked at it that way. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna watch this stuff. As I watch it, I'm like, wow, he has a tremendous motor. He can slash. His ability to finish. I'm like, okay, he does everything else pretty darn good, So the shooting could get worked on, but you know, uh, he does everything great. I mean, he goes into Atlanta. I mean, that's a match made in heaven to me. That's just a perfect fit. So Isaac Okoro, Atlanta. I don't think they should trade the pick. I don't think they should go after Drew. To me, it should be Isaac. He's just what he could bring defensively, along with, like you said, adding Cam Reddish, Horter. Remember they took DeAndre Hunter last year. So I think that this is a match made in heaven for him. And then the shooting will come. I think the shooting will come, but everything else, he does everything else pretty damn good. So to me, Isaac Okoro in Atlanta, that's like a match made in heaven for me.
It's funny you mentioned DeAndre Hunter. That's literally where I was going to go with my
Yeah.
next point. Is that when you're kind of like a supervisor or a boss in your company, you see somebody, what one of your workers not necessarily performing up to their full potential or to the best of
Yeah,
their
yeah.
ability. Sometimes, if you want to make a really sneaky move to get the best out of somebody, you bring in competition, right?
Yes.
So you just drafted DeAndre Hunter last year. He was nowhere close to what you thought he was going to be in his rookie season. Obviously, he's still young. I know he was a multi-year player at Virginia, but he wasn't what you thought he was going to be next to some of those other guys. And Cam came on the second half
Yes.
of the year before the COVID shutdown. But he kind of had a disappointing rookie season in terms of the overall talent we know he has going back to his high school days as
Mhm.
well. So, what better way to light a fire underneath both of those guys than
Mhm.
bringing a Toro who plays the same position as the both of them, and at the very least is going to give them a run for their money. I guess worst case scenario, if there's somebody that ultimately you don't like out of those three, maybe you throw them in some kind of
Exactly.
package, possibly with a Collins or somebody like that to really hopefully bring back like another big fish to play with those guys. But yeah, I think honestly, I don't see any downside to making an Okoro pick. That's why I have him going 6 to Atlanta. At number 7, the Detroit Pistons could go a number of directions. There's all of this buzz about Patrick Williams being a favorite in that new Detroit Pistons front office. I'm not a fan of that pick. I
No.
don't think Detroit needs another project player. Sekou Doumbouya kind of already gives them that at that
Yeah.
4 spot. That young forward with heavy upside in his own right. I mean, if he pans out to some of the
Oh,
stuff he was able to show internationally, good lord, they have a player. I
exactly.
guess there's some off court the questions potentially with him, but I have Onyeka Okongwu going here, and
Okay.
that might disappoint Washington Wizards fans in that front office. I know that they would love to have him to better complement John Wall and Bradley Beal, but if you think about what Dumboya could be at that 4 spot, especially defensively, then you have Okongwu at the 5 defensively. Now you have a defensive foundation for years and years to come. Two incredibly young guys who could potentially be switchable anchors on that end of the floor. Forget what Okongwu can even potentially do for you offensively in his rookie year. I just think that good of a building block on such an important end of the floor, especially in a league that's become so offense oriented. At some point, you have to be able to stop somebody if you're playing in a meaningful game, right? So
Yes.
having another anchor like a Kongu, I just feel like that's a really solid pick. And I don't think Detroit should be trying to make a splashy or a fully upside laden pick. They have some young guys that they want to continue developing. And I think Okongwu is a really good fit here as someone who I think as sure of a thing as could be in this draft, at least on the defensive end. So
Agreed. Agreed.
do you like that pick, Chris?
Yeah, I definitely like that pick. I like Yanka a lot. He does everything pretty good too, especially around the paint. He gives me like a little bit. I'm not saying he's this player, but he gives me some little bit Bam vibes with some Trez a little bit too. Not the
Defensively,
yeah, not maybe not as intense as Trez, but has some Trez vibes to me too. Also with some Bam. Well, he's gonna be. I think he's like you said. He's one of the safer prospects, and he's just gonna come in and he's just gonna do what he does defensively, block shots. And I know that's not going to be the sexy pick for Detroit. I know some Detroit fans might want to get someone who can help score and stuff, or maybe get a wing or something. But I know I've heard Obi Toppin too. But getting a guy that can help anchor defense, like what a Kongo could do, his ability to just cover everything in the paint. I think that would be a great pick for Detroit, and to continue to just add good player like that, you can't go wrong with that. So if Oyek is here at 7, man, that's another home run pick for Detroit, and they should take him and just continue to build.
absolutely. So number 8.
Ah,
This
yes,
is this is a very popular spot, a heartwarming spot in your mind, hopefully, Chris.
yes,
You are a Knicks guy.
yes.
Um, Cole Anthony is the top player on my board. I will not back off of that stance whatsoever. I think his upside, he's been bashed, he's been kicked to the curb
Yes,
too
yes.
much, and I honestly, I really think I really think that it's not warranted at this point. He
Nah.
he he comes from a great background. He's a mature kid. Everyone you talk to who's been around him off the court, everything you've heard, be it teammates, coaches, everybody likes him. They think he's going to come in and be a professional. I like his attitude coming into the draft. He just wants to come in, work hard, and win. And when you look at his game overall, what can't he do on the
Exactly.
basketball court at his size? What skill doesn't he have? People want to just come on social media and draft Twitter and just spew about, well, he only shot this percentage from the floor,
Oh my
or he
God,
only
I
did
get so
this.
mad at that. I get so mad at that, man, when they just look at the percentage. I get so mad at that.
And it's we didn't take it into context, right? Chris Vernon made one of the most emphatic cases I think that anybody could make on the mismatch when he was talking about Cole Anthony with Kevin O'Connor. I'm not going to yell and get quite as loud as he does on his podcast, but he made the right case. Who else on North Carolina? I've said this before too. Who else on that team are we going to be talking about
Exactly.
in draft circles? I don't see another prospect on that team. So given that they didn't have shooting period outside of Cole Anthony really on that team, he wasn't playing with other NBA type talent. I think just how open the game's going to be at the NBA level, I don't see him failing like a lot of other people think he will. So as a Knicks supporter, Chris,
Oh yeah.
do you like the pick?
All right. So Nick's Twitter gets crazy, with the pit with draft picks and all that. And Cole Anthony's been obviously, a hot topic too. And I feel like he gets disrespect, like you said. The disrespect he gets it's kind of high. I think he's the most disrespected player in this draft. As far as people just not even thinking about. No, he shouldn't be there. He shouldn't even be thought about with this pick. And I just think I'm like that's kind of crazy. Like he's really good. Like he's a really good player. He's a modern day combo guard. I could can score and do all stuff. And like you said, at North Carolina, that team was not good. he was not a good basketball team. He had the spacing wasn't there, and like I said, wasn't playing with other good players. And I mentioned this all a lot. It's like there's certain guys that are their game is better suited in the pros than is in college. We all know college style. You're playing in the system, and you're going against zone defenses like crazy, especially in the ACC. Especially going against Syracuse and all that, Duke. Zone heavy defenses, and like you're not going to see those in the NBA, right? You're not going to see that a lot in the NBA, and what he could do, getting to the basket and all this stuff is he's explosive too. Like he's so explosive. Like the thing, he's a special athlete. He puts in the work, and he has the pedigree, right? His dad was in the NBA. His dad was a former Knick. Like I don't know why people are just like discrediting him. Like he has the pedigree. He's worked with countless, top trainers and NBA players. Like this dude works. He puts in the work. Like he's a good player. I think people just focus on, oh, he shot 38% from the field. No, he's not. And I've seen people literally just do that. And I'm like, guys, you have to actually see what happened at North Carolina. It wasn't it was not a good situation for them. Like they struggled as a team. They were an awful team, you know? And the disrespect he gets, it gets me. I'm getting amped up about it because it's so disrespectful. But with the Knicks at 8, listen, I'm a big Kyra Lewis fan, and I would love if the pick is Kyra. But if you tell me the Knicks come out and they take Cole Anthony, I'm not upset at all. I'm happy because I think we're going to get a hell of a player. So if the Knicks take Cole Anthony here, I'm happy. And a lot of Knicks fans are going to be virtual booing, like they always do. But to me, Cole Anthony, if he's here at 8 and they take him, I'm happy with because this kid is going to be really good. Like, and he's underrated playmaker too. I don't think people put that in. He could play make too. He just didn't have that chance at North Carolina. So I'm definitely big on Cole Anthony. I think this would be a good pick if he's there.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, you just made a lot of great points about Cole Anthony that obviously I'm not going to dispute any of them. And I think that having him come back playing in New York, I think it would be a special thing for the city. I think it would mean a lot to his family, to him. And I think it would be a great way to help get the Knicks back on track because, yeah, they need a point guard. They need an offensive initiator. They need a lead scorer. Another guy who can take pressure off RJ Barrett handling the basketball, who can operate out of pick and roll with Mitchell Robinson. They need that guy. And to me, I don't see a better place for Cole Anthony to go than to the Knicks. Now, me having Cole Anthony number one on my board, do I wish him going to a potential bad
Yeah,
situation with the
exactly.
Knicks? But I mean, listen, Temple graduate Leon Rose, my guy.
Yes,
I believe in the new front office. I
me
believe in where
too.
the Knicks are going, and I would believe in them more if Cole Anthony was going there with them. So
Agreed. Agreed.
the next guy has been heavily speculated to go to the Knicks, but I'm gonna have him go here. And I certainly would if I was the Wizards, if I was making this pick, if Okongwu was off the board, Obi Toppin would be my next target.
Mhm.
He's athletic as all hell. Perfect pick and roll or pick and pop partner with John Wall or Bradley Beal. Defensively, he's maybe not the anchor that you would want him to be, but offensively, I think he gives the Wizards that extra dimension that they're looking for. So, what do you like the most, Chris, about Obi Toppin's game? Do you think that's a good fit for that team overall?
Oh yeah, he's the most offensive ready player in this draft, in my opinion. He could do everything offensive, like I said, pick and pop. With John Wall and all that, he's going to be a monster on that. And then pick and roll, just driving, and his athletic ability is off the charts too. Like he's one of the best athletes in this draft, and guy who could score, can shoot from three too. Like shot what 39%, I believe, from three. So he's good at that. Solid free throw shooter. I know the defenses people get worried about, and it is kind of weird. Like as athletic as he is, like he's kind of robotic defensively a little bit. But I feel like he could be an okay, he could be a respectable defender once he gets to the league. I think it could get a little overblown, but he's still a little, still got to work on his footwork and lateral, quickness as far as defensively. But the offense to me is ready right now, and I think you know Right now, I think he's a early favorite to be rookie of the year because I feel like he's so well rounded. I know people worry about the age too. That he's 22 years old. People consider that old. In today's NBA, which is kind of crazy. But Obi Toppin to me, he goes into there, and you add him with Beal, and John Wall hopefully coming back healthy, and Hachimura. They got some guys there. So adding Toppin to that would be a nice fit for Washington.
Imagine that lineup if he could be physical enough to play the five, and you have him
Yeah.
and Rui in the front court, plug in the
Woo!
small forward of your choice, and then John Wall if he's back to being John Wall and Bradley Beal. Hello, everybody
At the
forgot about
playoff
that
team.
team in the Eastern Conference,
At the
but
playoff team. At the playoff
yeah,
team. If Wall comes back and he's listen, I don't know if he's going to be the same John Wall, but even if he's 85% of John Wall, going on with Beal, who's an all, he should have been an all NBA type player, and you add Hachimura, who's an up and coming player, and you add Top into that, I think that could be a playoff team for sure.
100%, 100%. Moving along, 10 Phoenix Suns. They need another ball handler, another offensive initiator, a guy who can handle the rock and make plays for others next to Booker long term. I don't know if Ricky Rubio is the answer long term.
Mhm.
So this to me is a perfect fit, right, for Tyrese Halliburton. And if I was the Suns and I was looking at who's off the board at this point and who can help me not only in the long term but even in the immediate future, just in case something happens to one of those two guards, Rubio or Booker, somebody you can step in and play winning basketball and make the right plays for others in important games. I think Halliburton could really be that guy. He's at his best when you don't ask him to do too much, right? And I think
Exactly. Yeah.
with what Phoenix proved, especially in the bubble, almost making the playoffs, going undefeated in the bubble. I think they've proven enough that the guys they have, the pieces in place, they can win big games. They can win starting next season. So I think adding Halliburton to that mix only betters their chances. Would you see anybody else being a better fit here? Or you think Halliburton could be the guy given everyone else who's gone off the board?
I like Halliburton a lot. I think he'd be a great fit here. Like I said, get him another ball handler. He could play. He could play on the ball, could play off the ball. And someone that could eventually, take Rubio's spot and be, the guy there. Along with Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges and Ayton. I mean, they got some guys. Oubre. I know they're a team rumored to be trade. In trade rumors, but if they stay put here, adding a adding Tyrese Halliburton here. I know people like they will focus on the shot, his orthodox, unorthodox shot, but it goes in. You know, it goes in. So I think people need to focus on that. I know he may have to, work on some, adjustments a little bit, but it goes in. I think that's the most important thing is it goes in. We've seen plenty of guys who've had beautiful forms and their shot doesn't go in. So, I
Yeah,
think, yeah, right. I think that's such an over emphasis. It goes in. But I like him a lot. I think he's versatile. He could do a lot of things, and to go to a system in Phoenix, like you said, up and coming team. They play tremendous in the bubble. They added Tyrese Halliburton. He can learn from Ricky Rubio. I mean, Rubio is still still a very good player. Even that he's getting older, he's still a good player. What about he can learn from him, learn from Book, and I think this is be a great pick for Phoenix.
yeah. I think, like I said, as long as you're not asking him to do too much, I think he's
Yeah,
going to be a winning player and a contributor for a long time in the league. So no reason why he's not a top 10 selection.
agreed.
Number 11, the San Antonio Spurs. Speaking of Matt Babcock, he tweeted out just
Yes.
before we started recording this. We're recording this on Wednesday, November 11th. That the Spurs could be up to something big behind the scenes. So they very well may not make this pick, but if they do, I think it would be wise of them to take Patrick Williams here at this point in the draft. Project player, possibly, likely. No, I'm going to call him a project player. I think that's ultimately what he is. He's not going to come in and win a lot of games for you right away in his rookie season, but you give him time to develop those raw physical tools. I think he can be a great fit. And what better place for him to go if he does need to sit down, take some time and develop than San Antonio, right? How many guys
Exactly. Yeah.
have they helped? Whether it's jump shooting, whether it's being better off the ball, whether it's fitting better into certain offensive schemes, and they need to be taught those things about the game. What better situation than San Antonio, right? So
Yes. Exactly.
I think that's a match made in heaven there. Sacramento Kings. I have Devin Vassell out of Florida State. So two Florida
Hmm.
State guys going back to
Back to
back.
back.
Um, the Kings need more shooters, man. Especially if Bogdanovich ends up leaving, they need more shooters. And I think him in between De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley would be a great fit to help spread the floor for those guys. So out of those two picks, out of those two guys, I should say, Chris, which Florida State player do you think has the better upside long term?
I mean, I'm big on Vassell simply because he showed a lot more at Florida State than Patrick Williams. But obviously, you look at Patrick Williams and you're just like, he's what you want to look at as a modern day wing, right? He's just physically gifted, right? He has all the tools. He's just built, he's chiseled, right? he looks like an NBA player, right? He's just so just so developed at such a young age. 6'8", 6'9", like 220 pounds. He's going to be, he has the potential to be a really good player. Obviously, he's still super raw, especially offensively, super raw offensively. But the potential for him to be, a tremendous, especially on defense. He's a stalwart on. He could be. He's going to right away be a good defender just simply off his raw ability and everything he brings now. But if you get the offense together, he definitely has more upside than Vassell. But right now, I think Vassell gives you, can give you a more impact right away because his ability to he can defend too, obviously, and his ability to shoot from three, gives him more of the, more, he's going to be able to play quicker right away than Patrick Williams. But Patrick Williams' upside is just it's crazy. You could definitely be getting yourself. And they've done it before. They had Kawhi Leonard. They have the ability to develop wings. So going to San Antonio would be a great spot for him, and they could be getting themselves a hell of a player if he pans out.
Yeah, and as long as Williams is able to stay engaged defensively,
Mhm.
in any minutes he's able to get his rookie season, he's the best off-ball cutter in
Yeah.
this draft class, and in my opinion, given his athleticism and physical tools, he doesn't have the best burst out of
Yeah.
some of the other guys in this draft. But I think in terms of where he chooses to cut, how he picks his spots,
Mhm.
that's definitely a skill. It's a skill that can get you easy buckets. Obviously, he's a transition threat. I think he can do enough to earn minutes to get into an NBA rotation wherever he's drafted. The question is, how good is he going to be right away? So he definitely has some developing to do. But I agree, his upside, given his tools, some of the flashes he showed creating off the ball, he's a tremendous prospect in his own right, and I think that his future is definitely bright. New Orleans Pelicans, number 13. Tyrese Maxey's where I have I that's where I have him going. I think he would certainly be a great option for them, especially if they end up trading Drew Holiday. You need a guard next to Lonzo who can score the ball,
Mhm.
right? You're not going to ask Lonzo to be the primary scorer in that backcourt. Obviously, you have other guys that can do that, like Zion and Brandon Ingram are going to get the ball more frequently. They're your number one and number two guys, wherever you want to slot them in offensive priority. But you need a third guy who can get buckets, right? It's probably not going to be Jackson Hayes. It's probably not going to be Lonzo Ball
No.
unless it's like a lot of like catch and shoot or like easy transition opportunities. But as a third shot creator, I really like what Maxey could potentially bring to that team. I know there's a lot of buzz about Kentucky guys being overlooked because they're playing Calipari's system. He doesn't let everybody do
Exactly.
quite as
Yeah.
much as they can flash. But do you how much do you like Maxi as a prospect, and how good of a fit do you think he is in New Orleans? Whether they end up trading Drew Holiday or even if they keep him and JJ Redick.
Yeah, Maxi, I've been going back and forth on him, how I've been feeling about him, but I think the Kentucky thing is real. Like as far as like how many Kentucky guys we've seen, like they're playing at Kentucky and you don't see what they are, especially when they get to the pros, right? We see Murray and we're seeing Booker, we see them Bam, and we see them just pop, and we don't see that at Kentucky. And I feel like this is going to happen with Tyrese, especially if he goes to New Orleans, where they could use a scoring combo guard like him for sure. Guy, I think he's just going to be a guy that's going to score. He's just going to give you instant offense right away. I think he's just going to come in and just, if you need point, he's just going to be an old school, just a point getter, bucket. He's just going to get you buckets. Simple as that. He could get you buckets, and I feel like at the next level, he's gonna be another one of those guys that where we might see him excel at the next level. And that's something we didn't see, particularly at Kentucky in his in his stint in Kentucky. So I think he's definitely someone who could pop at the next level and just be an absolute scorer. He gives me some Lou Will vibes, with probably a little bit more quickness and athleticism, but he gives me that because I think he's just going to come into the league and just be an instant impact scorer for sure.
Absolutely. At 14, Boston Celtics, another one of those teams, remains to be seen if they're going to keep that pick or not. They have 3 first rounders. Could they package all 3 of them and go
Mhm,
after somebody? Could they package a few of them and go after somebody?
mhm,
We're going to find out on draft night or maybe right before draft night. But sticking with this mock, making them make the selection, if I'm acting as head of their basketball operations, who am I looking at to make the pick on here? I'm looking at RJ Hampton. Guard, played for the New Zealand Breakers overseas, has gotten more buzz recently, especially after his interview that he did on Ryan Russillo's pod. That was a great get by Russillo to have him on, as well as Mike Miller, who's been doing a lot of training with him. Listen,
mhm.
I believe in RJ Hampton. He's almost as athletic as anybody else in this draft. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
put Edwards above him still, and Wiseman. But once you get past those 2 guys, he's as athletic as anybody else in the draft. Good size, especially at a lead guard spot at about 6'5". The questions mainly are about his jump shot, but if
Mhm.
you take a look at some of that video that's come out now
Yes, I was
about
just
his
gonna.
workouts, yeah, he's cannon threes from all over the place, and having a drill sergeant like Mike Miller showing you how to properly shoot the ball from NBA
Mhm.
range, those little things to pick up, even moving without the ball to get better set towards the basket and find better ways to shoot from 3. I believe in that training. I believe in RJ as a kid. I think he's got a great attitude coming in. He believes in himself, and I think he's absolutely an undervalued pick here. I didn't see a better fit for him above this spot. That's why he's not higher in my mock. He was number 8 on my big board. So I'm clearly higher on him than actually an overwhelming majority. It seems like, believe it or
Great,
not, in the
yeah,
draft
yeah.
community. So where are you at on RJ Hampton, Chris? And how high do you think his ceiling is?
Oh man, his ceiling is could be all-star like he has all the physical tools, like you said, like his ability to act. That first step of his is it's something I just haven't seen from a lot of guys. Like that first step is scary. Like he's just it's something I haven't seen. Like I said, I haven't seen from a lot of guys. That first step, it's so fast. He's just so quick, and then his a lot to add to it his athletic ability. I think that could be something special. And another one of those guys, like I talked about, that we could see pop in the NBA. Like he went through his struggles, going overseas, but he's young, and it's you're playing against grown men overseas. It's going to be different. It's a different style of play. So, but I feel like to get him at this spot for Boston, I mean, like, why would people let Boston get him here? Why would they do that? They should not let Boston get another athletic player like this to go with Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, and that would just be criminal for people to allow Boston to get him here. And as long, with the staff they have, Brad Stevens, the way they develop guys, this would be great. Like I said, I don't think, obviously they got 3 picks in the first round. I could definitely see them making trades. I definitely do think they'll do that. But if they add RJ Hampton here, man, they might just get one of the steals of the draft, because he can potentially be a special player, an all-star type player, because he's gifted athletically. And what better place to go where they can refine everything else, get him under control offensively, stuff he does, get his, defensively and all the, he's going to be active, because you got to be active in Boston to play defense and all that. So they can, what better spot for him to go? I think this would be a home run pick for Boston.
Oh, if he's a stud and he hits a ceiling with Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, I mean, come on. The rich get richer, right?
Exactly, right?
It's
They
obscene at
do.
this point. So what I'm gonna do, that we've hit pretty deep on the lottery here, and I'm glad that we've been able to break out that much of the discussion. I'm gonna run through some of these other picks in groups of like 5 or 6 here. Kind of just give my thoughts a little bit, and then Chris, I'll turn to you then after I'm done kind of reading off some names and giving some thoughts as to who might stand out to you, and in which situations you might like best for some of these guys. So 15, the Orlando Magic. That front office, again, John Hammond coming over from the Bucks. They love to choose long, tall players, and they got another one right there who would be available to them, Jaden McDaniels. And I think, honestly, if I'm putting on the GM hat, I've seen what worked in Milwaukee. I've seen what's actually been working with mixed results in Orlando, but we haven't seen Chuma quite yet. He's going to be coming back this year from injury. I'd probably stick with the formula, to be honest, unless you're really confident in one of the other point guards available, like a Kyra Lewis might be a popular name here to go to Orlando. But Jaden McDaniels, all the upside in his own right. I would absolutely love that fit in Orlando, giving them another potential primary scoring forward. Worst case scenario, another guy who actually showed to me a lot of really good defensive instincts, particularly off the ball. Again, keeping that defense on Orlando strong, which ended up being a strong suit. It allowed them to certainly make things more competitive in some of those games against Milwaukee than you might have thought originally before that series started in the bubble. Portland Trailblazers 16, Sadiq Bey, forward out of Villanova, has gained a lot of buzz about a guy that I might have ranked too low, a guy that I might even have going too low in this mock draft, given some of the other picks made. But I don't buy a lot of the offensive upside that some people might be seeing with Bey. I think he's going to be a little more limited offensively, or not maybe asked to do that much in the NBA if it turns out that his 3-point shot is on. But and I've also talked about on the pod before when I've evaluated him about some of the things I don't see quite with him defensively. But Portland would absolutely need another 3-4, 4-3 forward here. So I think he could be a great fit coming in, learning from some of those guys like Dame and CJ, and improving his game and helping them in that role in what's likely to be and should be a playoff team next year. Minnesota Timberwolves get another pick here at 17. Aaron Nesmith out of Vanderbilt, probably the best pure shooter in the draft. And if you're going to have a team, if I have my GM hat on, if I'm going to have a team with D'Angelo Russell, LaMelo Ball, and Karl Anthony Towns, three guys who you know are going to be able to have the ball in their hands and get buckets. Eventually, they're going to have to pass out somebody you can shoot, right? Get the arguably the best catch and shoot guy in the draft in Nesmith, regardless of where you might evaluate him defensively. I think at this point in the draft, if you know he's that much of a sure thing as a shooter, the most important offensive skill at this point, where the NBA is right now, go grab Nesmith. Dallas Mavericks at 18, Alexei Pokusevski, an incredibly polarizing prospect, arguably the most polarizing prospect in the draft alongside LaMelo Ball, at least in NBA draft Twitter circles. Certainly has a lot of upside of his own. I've shared on the evaluation of him on the pod previously. I don't think that physically he's the best guy to withstand a lot of the physicality that he's going to have to go up against at those big man spots in the NBA. If he's a perimeter oriented player, do you really want somebody his size being more perimeter oriented, especially on the defensive end, or would you rather have him more like a 4 spot if he can handle it? Being able to bring some of that versatility offensively, and especially having him closer to the basket, using his size and his length to act as kind of like a secondary rim protector. So there are a lot of different outcomes and ways that his ceiling could end up going. But Dallas loves international prospects. Tony Ronzone in the front office, great guy. Met him personally. He has a great eye for international talent. He's one of the best in the business, and I think that Pokusevski or Leandro Balmaro, who we'll talk about a little later, or at least I'll touch on later in this podcast. I think one of those two guys is probably a high value target for Dallas here at 18, looking more towards the future, keeping somebody off the books and kind of like a draft and stash spot, and being able to go after more veteran talent for this upcoming season. Desmond Bane going to the Brooklyn Nets at 19. I love Desmond Bane. I think he's such an underrated player, and he's grown a lot more popular at this point in draft Twitter circles as being a guy who's ready, tailor-made to come into the league, kind of like a Malcolm Brogdon type player, if you really wanted to peg some kind of comparison to him. Our underrated passer, making some of those quick decisions in the mold of like what Denny Avdia has shown, how I talked about him highly, doing some of those things with the ball, can come in, probably going to end up being like a 38, 39% 3-point shooter when all is said and done. So adding that kind of a guard to your team, tough, physical, can rebound, pretty much can do everything you want him to do on the court. Just doesn't have a lot of upside as like a first, second, or maybe not even necessarily a third option, but certainly someone you want to have on your team and go to war with. So out of those guys, Chris, anything that really stands out to you about any of those picks and some awesome fits?
I mean, Portland and Sadiq Bey to me is one of my perfect fits. I think that's a match
Okay.
made in heaven. Like the way his ability to move off the ball and his shooting, I think would be perfect for Portland. And Desmond Bain to Brooklyn. I mean, that says another like spot on fit. Like I've done a lot of mocks where
That's
I've
another
mocked
rich get richer situation there.
exactly. And being a Knicks fan, I don't want this. You know, I don't need Brooklyn to get better. You know, so but if I put it in my NBA hat on and taking the Knicks fandom out of me, Desmond Bain to Brooklyn, and I've talked to a lot of Brooklyn Nets fans. I obviously living in New York, and and they talk a lot about Desmond Bain, and they like what he does. Obviously, the shooting and how he moves off the ball, and like I said, underrated playmaking too. Like
Smart
and
guy.
smart guy, just and you add him with Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and they might lose Joe Harris. So if you lose Joe Harris, man, you just replace him with, you replace him with Desmond Bain. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a match made in heaven too. And Poku's obviously another guy that's it's polarizing because the talent is there, but I think people are scared of him. I see a lot of people are scared because they don't think the physicality and all that. But I wouldn't be shocked if he goes top 10. Like I just think
It wouldn't
people
shock me either.
it wouldn't shock me because I think people are just going to look at, especially in this draft. I think we're going to see a lot of more, teams take chances on guys like Poku and Jaden McDaniels and guys like that. That you see the talents there, you just got to refine it and get it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes top 10 and he could be, another steal and someone who could be, a great player, maybe an all-star type player. He has that potential, right? We see this with a lot of guys in this draft, that potential. So, well, if Dallas, I mean Dallas, they would like you said, like with Brooklyn, the rich would get richer if they get Poku at 18. You add him Porzingis and Luka, man, that'd be a home run pick for them too. So yeah, some definitely some good. Hey, Naismith, the best shooter in the draft. Minnesota with that'd be great, especially them taking Lamelo at 1 to add the Towns and all that, all those playmakers. He'll get some nice shots there. So yeah, definitely some good fits here.
Well, thank you for praising my potential GM talent
Yeah,
with
I love this. I love this board. I really do. I love it. This is something similar to what I would have. So, we got great minds think alike.
Yeah, as far as Pokuševski, I mean, listen, if Papa Giannis could shock the world as the lottery pick, then I don't think Pokuševski going top 10 should be as quite of a shock because he's certainly has a lot more talent and upside
Oh,
than that guy. But then
oh
not to
man.
disrespect Papa Giannis, but
Yeah. That
that
was a
was one of those picks you make. You probably fell out of your chair when you saw that one because I did. So
oh my good. I remember I forgot who was on the call, who was doing the draft that who was with I would think it was I don't know, whoever the ESPN guy. They're just like, what? He was like, no disrespect to Fabian, but he was probably what, a second round, maybe a second round pick, and they took him, but that's what Sacramento does. They shock you a lot. So
yeah, they did. And if Anthony Bennett going number one can get the infamous "whoa" out of Bill Simmons, then I'm sure there were some swear words
whoa,
flying with some people with Papa
that,
Giannis
that
at 13.
infamous
So
whoa, I remember that. Like that was
I
great.
remember it like yesterday. Absolutely. Well, you talked about some perfect fits in some of those other picks. I think some of these, in my mind, are even more perfect fits. Like Josh Green going to Miami at number
Oh
20. He fits the bill perfectly for them. Another 3-and-D, tough-minded guy. Really young prospect. One of the younger prospects in the draft, believe it or not.
yeah.
And if there's anybody again that can develop talent,
Oh
Miami's
yeah.
one of those places, and I think he could really be a perfect fit long term for them in a wing spot. And also Tyrell Terry, the Stanford guard, going to the Philadelphia 76ers at 21. I think if I'm making the pick for them, he's got to be the guy I target, right? It's not that they don't have shooting at all, but they don't have guys who can create their own shot from three off the dribble, really. And that's Terry's calling card. That's what he's built for. I love all the stuff that's come out about him regarding being taller now and
Yes.
putting on that muscle to help him physically. Absolutely.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. That's a perfect spot for sure.
That's probably between that and the Josh Green pick. Those are the two picks that I
Oh
love
yeah.
the most.
And Josh Green going to Miami, I mean, that's another rich getting richer. Like, and he fits the culture with his versatility and his defense. That'll be a great fit for Miami.
That's why people want to talk about this draft isn't laden with star power. Yeah, fine, but it's laden with really, really, really good
Exactly.
long term plays and role
Yeah.
players. So
Hey, the league is made up of 80% of the 85% of the league is made up of role players. So like when people say that, it's like, you need role players in this league, right? To fill out your roster. And look at Miami too. Like that's a perfect example, right? We see, how they build their team and all that. So when people say that, I just think it's silly. They just look at the top and just think, oh, there's not a star power. But to me, this I like a lot more guys than I don't like in this draft,
I feel the same way. And ranking some of these guys, having to make some of these picks, it's tough. It really is tough because I like a lot of these guys.
Mhm.
Um, and there are some names that haven't come up yet that people are like, well, why aren't they picked higher? Well, some of these
Yeah,
fits we're talking about, I think they're pretty damn good fits. And
exactly.
this one at 22 might shock a few people, but the Denver Nuggets, if I were them, right, what was one of the biggest things they needed come playoff time? What was more defense out of the forward spots? Obviously, they have
Yeah.
Jeremy Grant, but especially missing Will Barton, having another
Yeah.
guy who can play either the three or the four, help out defensively, and be a special talent off the ball when they need him to be. Tyler Bay went to college at Colorado, could play
Mhm.
his college basketball in, I mean, his professional basketball in state. Same state as where
Exactly.
he played college ball. I think that'd be a great pick for them, especially if his jumper pans out. Another guy who can spread the floor and just be someone who maybe doesn't have to start for them, especially given the talent. Like I said, if Will Barton's able to come back healthy, plug right back into that starting unit, somebody they can bring off the bench in certain situations, just go out along with Jeremy Grant, just shut
Mhm.
some people down, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that's more of what Denver needs. And if they get another player like him defensively, good God, is that team going to be tough to deal with for years down the road?
Oh yeah.
At number 23, the Utah Jazz taking one of my favorite players in this entire draft class, Malachi Flynn, out of San Diego State. You put him next to Donovan Mitchell making plays at the point guard spot. Should Mike Conley potentially be moved off of here in short order if he's not the perfect fit for them, even just after this year? Forget just this year. Flynn could step in right away. And help Donovan Mitchell in the backcourt, run pick and roll sets, kind of free Donovan from that always having to make plays for everybody else all the time role.
Mhm.
Let Donovan focus more on scoring and shooting where he's more comfortable at. As we saw in the playoffs, he can put up points in bunches when he has the opportunity. So having another guy who can handle the rock and make smart decisions, and in turn get involved in some of those catch and shoot situations when Donovan does have the ball in his hands and space the floor for him, and not be a detriment to him shooting the three. So I love that fit at the point guard spot. And then my last guy before I'll break it out to you again, Chris, Kyra Lewis going to the Milwaukee Bucks at 24, a guy who a lot of people are probably going to comment on this podcast saying, why is he all the way down at 24? I'm not a big Kyra Lewis guy. I've kind of expressed that in my evaluation of him on an earlier podcast. I get it. He's a speedster. He's the open court blur of the class. He obviously has a lot of upside in his own right, being how young as he is, but being that young yet having 2 years of college experience under his belt to grow and develop, coming into the league now. I get it. I get the whole evaluation. I don't think he's the decision maker that everyone wants him to be
Mhm.
quite yet, if he does pan out that way. And I don't think he's great at choosing when to start and stop, and kind of balance playmaking with just crashing into the defense and seeing if he can get a bucket. If the jump shot is there long term, that's something that works in his favor and obviously increases what his spot was on my big board. But out of those picks, I'm sure you want to talk about Kyra Lewis, Chris. Feel free to break out any of those picks that we just ran through.
Yeah, Kyra Lewis. I'm probably, I'm a lot higher on him than you are. I have him in my top 10. I'm big on Kyra. I think, like you said, the speed, to be able to break down the defense, and the playmaking definitely improved a lot from year one to year two, and I think that that's something that'll translate, and he'll get better with for sure, in my opinion. But like Malachi Flynn to Utah, I mean that'll be a great fit. And Tyler Bay too, an athletic, wing like that. Denver, with the possibility of not having Jeremy Grant there, losing him in free agency, replace him with a guy like Tyler Bay would be great. So, some good picks. I'm always, like I said, I'm higher on Kyle Lewis than you are, but I could definitely see why you have him, lower than most people. But like you said, this draft, everything changes from 10 on. You know.
It's loaded, and Tyler Bay didn't have a first round grade for me. I went over
Yeah.
that in more recent weeks and some of the second round grade and evaluations that I was doing. But when you just look at the pure fit, right? If I'm just a basketball operations personnel guy, just looking at fit, what my team needs now, what they're lacking, I don't see a better fit for what I saw what their glaring weakness was than Tyler Bay. So whether you're reaching, whether you feel like you're reaching, there are so many guys from like 15 on that you can make a case for a lot of these teams, and that is what we've talked about this whole time. The depth to this class from a role player perspective is incredible.
Mhm.
So kind of rolling through these last picks in the first round, 25 to 30 here. Jamias Ramsey, guard out of Texas Tech, going to the Thunder at 25. I think a lot of his limitations aren't necessarily skill limitations for me, but a lot of stuff understanding the game, having a feel for the game. Oklahoma City, again, another great development hotspot
Yeah.
for somebody like him to go to and break out his game a little bit. Probably going to be taking a step back with a Chris Paul trade likely coming at some point here in the offseason. Looking to hit the reboot button firmly now. Especially if they do trade him. So Jamias, I think, would be a great fit there. Boston making another pick if they keep this pick. Precious Achua, somebody who I have a lottery grade on. I think he could slide on draft night just because there isn't a lot of confidence in what he can do offensively. And this is such an offensive-driven league with a lot of offensive-driven front offices that I think he slides. But if you're getting him at 26, a
Mhm.
Boston Celtics team that needs another big man, especially a defensive-minded big man, to go along with Tice, and if Cantor were to stay with the team, or if he's going to be elsewhere. But bringing in Precious, one of the more unique defensive talents in the draft, along with somebody like Tyler Bay and Isaac Okoro. Precious could potentially guard 1 through 5, and
Yes,
can
it's a
certainly hold his own down low. I think the center spot is where he's at long term, and I would love that fit if Boston were to get him. I think you could plug him in and start playing him right away, regardless of his offensive limitations, because of how much offensive talent that the team has already, especially with on-ball shot creation. The Knicks here again at 27. Do
love
you?
this pick.
I
I
guess I'll
love
just
this pick.
stop you here. Do you like the pick of Jalen Smith
Love
going
it.
to the Knicks?
Love it. Love it. I don't think he'll make it to 27. I have him going, I have him top 15. I think he'll go between 15 to 20. So, but if he's here at 27, I mean, that's another that'll be a home run for the Knicks if they can get him at 27 here, with his length and all that, be able to hit some shots on the perimeter, and his defense is good too. So to add that, like I think the Knicks need to add some size too. Everyone talks about guards and get some perimeter guys, but if the Knicks can add another big man like Jalen Smith, I mean that would be great to because Mitchell Robinson he's super raw. He's still super raw. I know people love his defense, and a lot of especially Knicks Twitter, they assume he's untouchable and anything, but Jalen Smith, would definitely add. Because he's a lot more versatile than what Mitchell Robinson can do right now. So to add Jalen Smith to this team with Mitchell Robinson and the rest of these guys, that'd definitely be a great pick if he's here at 27.
Yeah, and somebody again, I don't have him this low on my big board, but just looking at the teams ahead, um, I just don't think a lot of them need pure centers. And
Yeah.
Jalen Smith is a pure center, but yeah, the value he could provide off the bench for the Knicks, or even if you really want to get wild and do a twin tower style lineup, if you believe he's that mobile to be able to cover some fours, certainly with his shooting ability, he still spreads the floor for Mitchell Robinson, and then obviously the defensive impact you would have with those two shot blockers on the court together.
Oh yeah.
That could be some exciting stuff for
Especially with
your
Tim
Knicks.
Grubb's defense, right? Tibbs loves defense, so to add another guy like that, would definitely be great, and definitely improve the defense for sure.
He does love defense, and he played Joakim Noah and Taj Gibson together for
Exactly.
years.
I was just gonna say that
So
he played them together, so I'm sure he's thinking about this, and these two together would be definitely definitely help the defense, big time for the Knicks, which is something they need to improve the defense for sure.
the Lakers, if they at 28, if they get rid of or they just choose to leave one or both of their big men, Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, alongside Anthony Davis, why not draft Zeke Naji, center
Hmm.
prospect out of Arizona, to fit right in? Um, Defensively underrated. He's one of the better athletes at that big man spot in the draft. Obviously moves his feet well. I think can cover switches enough in pick and roll. Maybe not be the best pick and roll defender at the big man spot in the draft, but one of the better ones. And in turn, what he could potentially provide offensively if his shot translates outside to 3-point range. A lot of the workout videos I was seeing, his stroke looked so much more
Yes.
improved
Yeah.
than what it was
Agreed.
from Arizona. We know that he's a pick and pop threat from inside the arc, but if he is one from outside the arc, letting LeBron and AD run pick and roll while he's spreading the floor for the team, I mean, that just gives them another dimension and another great big man to start next to Anthony Davis, letting Anthony Davis still play that 4 spot while allowing them to get younger at that center spot and kind of think long term as well.
Yes.
Um, my real surprise pick, the Toronto Raptors. We saw them do this with Pascal Siakam.
Hmm.
Paul Ebois, Cameroonian forward. I love this guy the more I watch him. I love this guy the more that I hear about him. That Schmitz interview that he did with him was fantastic. That
Yes.
everyone's probably, or at least a lot of the draft heads have gotten a chance to see. He could be a real value get, especially if he slips to the second round. But I think there's a chance Toronto could make a splash and take another somewhat unknown guy. But I think he would pan out, not necessarily be on the same development path and be the same kind of special talent that Pascal was, but certainly a better, more quote unquote unknown find than somebody like Bruno Caboclo was. I think Ebois has a lot of intriguing upside that I
Oh
actually
yeah.
talked about last week on the podcast. And then to round out the 30 picks, Leandro Bolmaro, guard out of Barcelona, great stash get for Boston if they don't want to have all of their draft picks and they keep all of them, but don't want to have every guy in the roster taking up a roster spot. Bolmaro is a great guy that could potentially still develop for a few more years overseas and then in turn be
Hmm.
somebody else who can come into a Boston Celtics team that's all about ball movement and high IQ. Well, he might not be the best shot creator, but he is another high IQ guy who is all about moving the ball and kind of playing like a point forwardy kind of role. So breaking out that last series of picks, Chris, what stands out to you besides the Jalen Smith pick that we talked about?
Yeah, like the Zeke for Zeke, I wasn't crazy about him. I thought he could be a high energy guy, maybe come off the bench, be like play some defense and grab some, just that high energy guy. But the more I saw off, the shooting, right? You mentioned the videos you saw, like, that shooting stroke. I was like, okay, maybe he's another guy that could definitely, can add another layer to his game and be more versatile, as far as offensively. So the Zeke stuff is definitely he's definitely be intriguing for me. And to the Lakers, that would be another great pick. And Balmero too. If Boston, listen, I like we talked about before, I believe Boston definitely going to trade some of these picks and do some stuff in the draft. But if they do stay put and they get Balmero, there's no need. They don't have to rush him over here. They could keep him overseas in Argentina and all that, and let him develop, and get him in a few years, and he could be a more polished and better player, and they get themselves another player. And I think who did we give him before? We gave him Precious, and then we gave you gave him who was R.J. Hampton. I mean, the rich get richer. The
Yeah,
rich
I
get
mean,
richer.
if they kept all three of those picks and made all three of those picks, I think Boston fans would be incredibly ecstatic, except for maybe Bill Simmons, who would want me to take Tyrell Terry with the 14th pick over RJ Hampton. But I think Hampton just has more clear upside, and I think that he would eat a little crow. I think on that pick if that was actually made. Not that Terry isn't a special prospect in his own right, because I love him and I'm from the Philadelphia area or close enough to the Philadelphia area, rooting for the hometown 76ers. I think I show some love making that Tyrell Terry pick. I think he'd be the best fit would be in Philadelphia. To kind of close out things on this podcast, I think I've pretty much touched on some the majority of the questions that people asked our Twitter account at Draft Deeper when I was asking for some questions for this mock draft pod. Mike Stein specifically tweeted out, "What makes a good landing spot for a guy like Cole, who you have higher than most, and conversely, what teams might he struggle to reach his potential on?" I think that's a great overarching question to just address a lot of the same point that we've touched on for a lot of these guys, and what I've said from the start. At the end of the day, it's about when you're drafting somebody to come play minutes on your team, can a guy actually be able to earn those minutes in the right situation, and do enough things where you're comfortable giving him enough minutes to develop, and get better in the right situation? That's the differentiator. Do you have enough skill to be able to earn enough minutes to continue to develop the other parts of your game, round yourself out, and in turn contribute in a more winning situation? That's what will always separate yourself. That's what's led me to create this mock draft with these guys in these spots. If I'm a GM making all of these picks, this is where I would have a lot of these guys. Obviously, there could be some honorable mentions. We've covered a wide variety of guys through a top 60 on multiple episodes of this podcast. If you haven't heard about some of those guys that you might have questions about, you can tweet at us again at Draft Deeper for any thoughts. You can obviously go back and listen to some of the other podcasts on the feed to get information about any of the guys that we might have missed on. Chris, anything that I did miss in this mock draft pod that you wanted to hit on?
No, no, this was great. There's if I could just mention, there's a few guys that I really like that I have going in round one that might shock some people. I am a big Sam Merrill guy, I probably me and probably one other person think he can go in round one, but I'm big on Sam Merrill. I think his stuff could translate. Peyton Pritchard too is another guy I'm really high on, but
I thought long
those
and
are my
hard
guys.
about putting Peyton Pritchard and making his pick with the Lakers selection.
Yes,
I thought
yes,
long and hard about that. That's been a popular buzz topic, especially in social media, and I think it's something that absolutely could happen on draft night.
yeah,
I like the Najee fit better, but Peyton Pritchard, I've talked about him, how much I like him as an NBA ready guard,
yeah,
to
agree.
come in and help a rotation right away. I agree with both those guys. I like Merrill too as a shooter. I agree with both of them. So, Chris, it's been a pleasure having you on the show again. For anybody who hasn't followed you or listened to you yet, where can they find all of your stuff on social media?
Yes, yes, Nate. Thanks for having me on the show, man. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me on, and you can find me Off the Ball Pod on Instagram, Twitter, Off the Ball Podcast on Facebook. Do a lot. I'm doing a lot of live shows. Actually, doing my one more mock draft coming up this week, and I'll have my big board up, my last big board before the draft come up this week. So you can find all that stuff on social media. And I have a network, a sports network, so you can follow my network. You can go on the website, offtheball network.com. Also, OTB_network on Twitter, and Off the Ball Network on Instagram, all that stuff. So, but yeah, man, this was a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate you having me on. It was an honor to be on the show. I don't, I'm not as knowledgeable as you and a lot of these other draft guys, but to have the honor of be able to learn from you guys and understand these prospects more. It's been so much fun, and the draft's almost here, so I'm excited. But once again, thanks for having me on. This was a blast, man.
No problem, man. I love the conversation. I love being able to talk draft. Obviously, if I didn't love it, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast or creating this
Yeah,
platform. But anytime I can with anyone who wants to continue to learn, who has a great opinion that needs to get out there, I'm always willing to do it, man. And hopefully we'll have you back on
yes,
sometime soon. So everybody out there, flood his social media accounts with your
yes,
draft takes. Flood the Draft Deeper social media account with your draft takes.
yes.
And be ready. Next week, Draft Deeper will be on Twitch. We're going to be doing a live stream for the draft starting at 6:30 Eastern time.
Nice.
The link, more information will be out on social media in the coming days, but get ready for that. I'm excited. Chris, you're probably as excited as I am, man.
I'm
I can't wait
nervous.
for the draft.
I'm nervous, bro, especially being a Knicks fan. We're always in the top 8, 10. So there's always nervous times in Knicks land. But we got Leon, and I trust Leon in the process. So hopefully, we get things back in order. But the draft is we're a week away, so I'm excited, man. It's been
I,
been a long time. We've been waiting for this, right, man? We've been waiting for 8 months. It feels like we've been waiting years for this, but it's finally coming, and I'm excited.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chris, I wish the best of luck to you and your New York Knicks and the rest of your fan base and everyone else listening to this podcast. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you, man. God bless.